The Porsche 718 Boxster and Cayman have always represented something pure, the essence of driving distilled into two seats and a mid-engine layout. They've never been about numbers or luxury, they've been about feel. That moment when you drop into the seat, grab the shifter, and everything clicks into perfect balance. But Porsche, the same company that built its reputation on driving emotion, is now in the process of dismantling that legacy, offering a desperate backpedal for its high-end GT cars while letting the base 718, the model that defined attainable driving joy, quietly drift into an all-electric future. And that's the part that stings, because if you know Porsche's history, you know this car once saved the company from financial ruin. And now, almost 30 years later, Porsche is acting like it's forgotten what made it great in the first place. Back in the early 1990s, Porsche was in trouble, serious trouble. The 911 was too expensive to build. The 928 was losing relevance, and sales were plummeting worldwide. The company was selling barely a third of what it had a decade earlier. Analysts were openly predicting Porsche's collapse. Then, in 1996, the Boxster arrived. It was small, affordable by Porsche standards, and, crucially, profitable. Built alongside the 911 in Zuffenhausen, it shared major components with its big brother, dramatically cutting production costs. The result was a mid-engine roadster that captured everything people loved about the brand: balance, simplicity, emotion, but at a price that didn't require a trust fund. The Boxster didn't just sell well, it became Porsche's lifeline. It brought in younger buyers, stabilized cash flow, and funded the development of the Cayenne SUV, which would later turn Porsche into a financial powerhouse. Without the Boxster, there's a very real chance Porsche wouldn't exist in the same form today. Fast forward to now, and Porsche is preparing to turn that same savior into a battery-powered experiment. It's a little like biting the hand that fed you. Porsche's push towards electrification, to be fair, didn't come from nowhere. Pressure from the European Union, China, and the US has made CO2 regulations stricter each year. Luxury automakers like Porsche need EVs to meet fleet emissions targets. From a compliance standpoint, it makes sense. From a business standpoint, that's where things start to look shaky. The Taycan was supposed to prove Porsche could do electric better than anyone, that an EV could still feel like a Porsche. And on paper, it does. The Taycan is stunningly engineered. Low center of gravity, precise steering, insanely quick acceleration. It's a technological showcase. But here's the problem. Customers aren't buying it in the numbers Porsche expected. In August 2025, the Taycan had a 229-day supply sitting on US dealer lots. The industry average sits at around 70 days. That means dealers are sitting on more than 7 months of unsold cars. For a company that used to pride itself on selling everything it built, that's a major warning sign. And things have only gotten tougher. As of October, the $7,500 federal EV tax credit has expired, removing one of the few incentives that helped justify the Taycan's price. Now it's facing an even steeper uphill battle as EV demand cools and buyers grow more price-conscious. So while Porsche's executives call the Taycan a success story, the market disagrees. Great car, yes, but it's sitting on dealer lots gathering dust. And now, Porsche's about to make the same mistake with its most beloved sports car. The next-generation 718 Boxster and Cayman are being developed on a new platform shared with the Audi R8 successor. Porsche initially announced they'd be entirely electric. No hybrid, no gas engine, no exceptions. But after months of backlash from customers, journalists, and even dealers, Porsche quietly changed course. They confirmed that internal combustion would return for the top trim versions. That sounded like good news until you look closer, because those gas engines will only live in the upper echelon of the lineup. We're talking GT4, Spyder, maybe a new GTS, cars that already start well into the six figures. A Cayman GTS today runs at about $105,000 before options. The GT4 RS, you're easily looking at $185,000. And that's before dealer markups, because let's be honest, Porsche dealers never miss a markup opportunity. These cars will be produced in small numbers with limited allocations, sold to repeat customers and collectors who already have deposits on 911 turbos and GT3 RSs. So when Porsche says it's keeping gas engines, they don't mean for you and me. They mean for the few who can afford 911 money and know the right salesperson. What this really signals is the end of the obtainable everyday Porsche sports car, at least one with a combustion engine. The base 718, the model that introduced an entire generation to the brand, will still go fully electric. And that's tragic, because that car represented the entry point to Porsche ownership, a way for enthusiasts to experience the brand without mortgaging their house. It's clear where Porsche's priorities have shifted, away from accessibility towards exclusivity. And this new approach isn't limited to sports cars. Even their forthcoming flagship SUV, codenamed K1, is part of the realignment. Originally slated to launch as a fully electric model, the K1 will now debut with gasoline and plug-in hybrid powertrains instead. Porsche calls the move a strategic realignment, citing slowing EV demand, changes in the Chinese market, and new U.S. tariffs that make electric imports less profitable. In other words, Porsche is quietly admitting what the sales charts already show. EV enthusiasm is cooling off. Their newest launch, the Cayenne EV, only reinforces this point. It's an engineering showcase, brutally quick, packed with next-gen battery tech, and built to perfection. But listen to what people are saying. It's amazing, but it doesn't feel like a Porsche. That's becoming the company's biggest problem. Because Porsche customers don't buy on specs, they buy on feel. They buy on the mechanical connection, the noise, the sense of interaction that defines every great Porsche drive. When you replace that with silence and weight, even if the numbers improve, something essential disappears. Look across the brand and you'll start to see a pattern. The Macan is going electric. The Cayenne is going electric. The 718 is going electric. The models that made Porsche successful are being replaced by heavier, quieter, more complicated versions of themselves. Meanwhile, the internal combustion engine cars are being gated off for collectors who treat them like investments instead of experiences. For decades, Porsche built its reputation on loyalty and long-term value. A 911 or a Cayman wasn't just a car, it was an asset. Resale values were incredible, depreciation was minimal, and buyers trusted that Porsche products would hold their worth. But the Taycan changed that narrative completely. It's now one of the fastest depreciating luxury cars on the market. Some lightly used Taycans are selling for half their original price after just 2 years. And when the 718 EV arrives, history will repeat itself. EVs are expensive to build, costly to repair, and depreciate faster than their gas counterparts, especially once newer, longer-range versions hit the market. Meanwhile, the value of used 718s and Boxsters with combustion engines is already rising. People know what's coming, and they're holding on to the last analog Porsches like precious metal. So while Porsche claims it's building for the future, it's really pushing enthusiasts out of the present. The brand that once thrived on approachability is becoming gated, not by passion, but by price. It's a dangerous shift for a company built on emotion. When you alienate your core audience and chase compliance-driven trends, you stop being a brand and start being a spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet doesn't look as strong as it once did. EV margins are razor-thin, development costs are massive, and the market is cooling faster than anyone predicted. Porsche can call it strategic realignment, but it's really trying to find balance between what regulators demand and what drivers actually want. The irony is hard to miss. In the 1990s, Porsche nearly went bankrupt because it lost touch with its customers. The Boxster fixed that by bringing passion and affordability back into the lineup. Now that same car is turning into a rolling computer, heavier, quieter, and priced beyond the reach for people who once defined Porsche ownership. They call it progress, but it feels like déjà vu. Even Porsche's recent backpedals, adding gas engines to the K1 SUV and keeping ICE power for only the top 718 trims, are band-aids, not solutions. The Cayenne EV may impress on paper, but it won't stir the heart. The Taycan may be quick, but no one dreams about its soundtrack. And the 718, that's the red flag waving inside Stuttgart. If the new EV version fails to connect, and if it doesn't feel like a Porsche, it will trigger an identity crisis across the brand. The 718 isn't just another model, it's the bridge between enthusiasts and the halo cars. If that bridge collapses, Porsche risks repeating the same mistake that nearly killed it before. If you're a purist who still believes sports cars should sound, shift, and feel alive, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, would you buy a 718 EV, or are you holding out for the return of the Flat 6? Because this next generation isn't just about one car, it's about whether Porsche's soul still belongs to the people who love driving, or to the shareholders who've forgotten what that means.